Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Citizens of Lorcana podcast, a podcast where we invite you to be a part of their world. We are your hosts, Jared and James, and today we are talking about what it means to be a TCG collector and just a collector in general. So without further ado, let's jump into the episode. Hey everyone, welcome to another week. Last pod, we talked all about knowing the TCG lingo, and today we are talking about the hobby of card collecting and just collecting in general.
So I've been a collector my whole life, basically, from comics to toys to convention exclusives to almost you name it. But I've never put like huge chunks of money into one thing at once. What about you, Jared? What have you collected?
Does my Pokemon Go collection count? I did play that for more years of my life than I care to admit, but I had a really good collection. But seriously, though, the only thing I've really collected were the Star Wars action figures from the early 90s or the late 90s to the early 2000s. I had a paper out when I was a kid, and all of my money went to collecting these Star Wars toys. As a kid, with a paper out, I had over 100 and I think I counted, it was like 134 of these figurines. And I had like 10 or 11 of the big vehicles and some of the play sets. So that's the only thing I've really collected, but definitely going to plan on collecting Lorcana. And what about you? What have you collected?
Well, like I said, I've collected a lot of different stuff. I have about 7,000 or so comic collection.
Wow,
I
that's impressive.
collected Disney Infinity. I collected like every single thing from Disney Infinity that was released, except for I think it was the 2013 Mickey Sorcerer Mickey, like that was like a see-through version or something like that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we collect I collect puzzles now. We've collected some hot toys. I mean, basically, you name it, and I've got like at least one or two Funkos. I've got a few laying around. I mean, it's basically I have a collector mentality, and it's sometimes to a detriment.
Well, I remember one of the things you told me when we first started talking was when you go to conventions like San Diego Comic Con and these other places, you like to get the convention exclusives. And a lot of times, those in of itself will pay for your visits.
Yeah, so I get some stuff. Sometimes I'll pick something up just because I know that other people will want it, and I'll, of course, put it on eBay and sell it. But I also buy stuff for myself. So it's like, there's a way to pay for your habit. And
Right.
that is, unfortunately, some people view that as 100% wrong. Other people are like, whatever you got to do. So I mean, basically, I just do it as a way to pay for my habits, essentially. So today, we are actually going to be talking about collecting with our guest. And we'd like to introduce Nathan Kellenicki.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Nice to meet you.
Welcome,
It's nice to
welcome.
meet
It's good to have you.
Thanks.
I think that you and I have the distinction of being the first Lorcana HQ meetup between two people who hadn't known each other, because I know the Traverse Taverns guys will be like, well, we meet up all the time. Yeah, but you guys were already friends. So I'm counting us as the first official.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. They're in Texas, right? If I'm not mistaken, something like that.
I don't even know.
Yeah, but
Sorry,
yeah, I
guys.
think that's fair. We did not know each other, and then we met for the first time. I was in town for a conference, and uh, Jared, who turns out to be a very sociable guy, was like, "Hey, let's meet up." So we did, and it was a great time.
Went to a place called Nacho Daddy where they come out with these plates of nachos that are stacked about 6 inches high. It's,
Holy cow.
it's pretty
Nice.
crazy.
Yeah, I ate light that time. I could not handle that.
Well, you had already eaten, so, and you weren't expecting a big plate of nachos.
It's true. It's true. There was conference food that day, if I remember. So I think I would have rather had the nachos, though. So
I know all about that. Oh man. So as a collector, first, why don't you tell us a little bit about like the kind of stuff you collect, and then I think the thing that we all want to know is like how many D23 cards, like the Brave Little Tailors, do you have?
oh boy. So probably my one true love when it comes to collecting is definitely Lego for sure. Um, I've been into that since I was a kid. I'm in some of the communities, etc. I know a lot of people who work at Lego, been to the HQ, that kind of thing. I have some rare bits and pieces here. I've got a Lego set that they actually made for myself and a group of people. They printed our picture on the back of the box and everything. So that was cool. And I've been into that since I was a kid. But here and there, I've collected other things like you mentioned. I also have that collector mentality, which I hate. But there we go. um,
You know,
Probably, yeah. Let's see. The other one is I collect some Hot Wheels as well. I've been into those since I was a kid as well, but my collecting has evolved. Um, so I don't collect your standard like 99 sets Hot Wheels that you get in the supermarket or whatever. I collect like what was called like your higher ends or your Grail Hot Wheels or that kind of thing. They come in acrylic cases. There's maybe only 100 or 200 pieces out there, that kind of thing, and I enjoy collecting those too, because I've always had a thing for models, since I was a kid. Yeah, and now D23 cards, well, specifically Lorcana cards, mainly because I enjoy TCGs. I used to play Magic the Gathering and collect that quite heavily. Um, I sold off most of that collection now. I've kicked that habit, thankfully. But yeah, Lorcana is something that appeals to me greatly, and so um, why not jump in feet first, you know?
That's right. I remember the first time you showed me one of your Hot Wheels collections in the Lorcana HQ Discord. I was blown away because I honestly did not know that they came in a variety that was more expensive than 5.99.
Right. Yeah, there are multiple tiers. Yeah, if you go on their website, they have a thing called the Red Line Club where they do like um limited drops. I think they're like $30 or something like that, and they're pretty cool as well. But then they do other ones, which I think you're talking about the ones I showed you, which are some of them are employees only, some of them are gifts for salespeople at like New York Toy Fair, that kind of thing. And those are the ones that I like to collect for sure. Yeah, they put on more detail into them. They're shinier. They come in a nice display case, etc. So
yeah,
they're nice to look at.
definitely going for quality over quantity.
Right.
So, how many Brave Little Tailors do you have?
Oh God, I counted them right before this actually. I have 14 in total.
14.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I did go a little bit crazy there.
You made a lot of people jealous, but you also bought it when the pricing was right.
Yeah, I mean, not quite as well done as Jim's there, but with like because I believe you got them at D23 if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken,
it's
right?
hard to beat handing them to you for free. Yes, I don't
Right.
think you can beat that.
For sure. I wish I was there. No, I read about the game about a week before D23 happened. I think they did the initial announcement a week before the conference was about to begin. And I was like, wait a second, I have a sneaking suspicion this thing might be a thing, you know? And then they came up with the article and said, okay, they're gonna give up some cards at D23. I'm like, interesting. So I remember the Friday morning, I think it was, I was on eBay early looking for no doubt they were gonna come up, you know, they were gonna show up and people were gonna start selling them. I was looking for them, and I had a figure in mind of what I would pay, etc. And they started showing up. I was like, okay, a little bit higher. And then within like an hour or two, it shot up to like double what
It
my
happened
mental
so
figure
fast.
was, and then triple, and then quadruple. I was like, okay. So there was a lot of negotiating in my head, you know, but that's how it goes.
You had to basically think about it and then kind of rationalize. Like, well, it's more than I wanted, but I have to get them now.
Right, that was it. It's like there's a lot of discussion happening on the kind of HQ Discord about where, especially the finance channel, about where people think the values of these cards are going. I think I'm one of them that thinks over time, and I'm talking long term, 5, 10, 15 years, that kind of thing. This game has a chance to be a big thing. And if so, then these cards being the first cards that ever printed could be very, very valuable. And so I was weighing up in my head, you know, like, what am I prepared to pay for these? So yeah, it's like now or never was my thought for sure. And I think that's so far that's turned out to be correct. They've not hit what I paid for them again. You know, they've just kept going up. They did go down again a bit, but no, still nowhere near what I paid for them.
So when you look at collecting things, are you thinking like you mentioned, the long term. Are you thinking that you're going to hold these forever, or are they investments?
It's a bit of a mix, right? So I I wouldn't have collected this if I wasn't also interested in the game. It's not something I do. I have to actually care about it to actually be bothered about collecting it. So I initially just wanted a set for myself, just to have them. I was like, okay, I think I might get into this game. I might pick up a bunch of the first set. I might play a lot of them, that kind of thing. I was like, I'll pick up a set. But then as I thought about it more, and I was like, maybe it makes sense to cover my bases and pick up a few extra cards here and there. Um, and yeah, I think that's how it ended up going. So I've definitely got more than I want, and I'm going to keep a hold of quite a few of them. But I think eventually I'll probably sell some in order to make my money back, that kind of thing. But that time hasn't come yet. I don't know when it'll be. But there's been some talk with the other half. She's like, "Okay, cool. We could use it for a house down payment or something like
That is
that."
that is
Uh,
the exact conversation that I have had with my other half. I mean, those things shot up so fast. If you didn't have thousands, like by the end of the weekend, then you were out.
Absolutely. I think
Crazy to me.
even within like 4 or 5 hours of the first day, they were already at the set of six was already up to like $2,000 or $3,000 or something like
Yeah,
that.
it was
It was pretty
crazy.
nuts. Yeah.
I remember when the
Oh,
first one went up for sale and was like $400, and everybody was like, "That is so expensive." Oh,
Right.
if we only
yeah,
I
knew.
don't know if you saw, I don't know if you're in the Lorcana, what's it called? Lorcana Marketplace Discord, that's the one. But 2 days ago, there was a set of seven sequentially numbered. I think Dan, but it went for 35K.
Yeah,
yeah,
Um, yeah, and somebody else
unbelievable.
sold another set today. It's so crazy. And somebody else sold another set today that wasn't even full tens. It was three tens and three nines, and it went for like 23K or something like that. So
yeah.
these things are going crazy, absolutely crazy.
They had that initial surge, yeah, and then they dipped, like you said, and now they're surging again. And it's not even. It's like why? It's not even rules or anything are out.
Yeah, I think, well, I'm actually going to thank Jared for this, actually, with his meme a day scheme. I firmly believe if it wasn't for his activity on Twitter and everywhere else, constantly being on their case and being like, we're community here, show us more stuff, you know? Um, but yeah, since they've started revealing more, and I think they've shot up especially since London and German and Nuremberg toy fairs, and they've started showing off a bit more, a few more cards. They showed three cards at once the other day, which is a new thing. That's definitely new. But yeah, I think since more information is coming out and more people are becoming aware of it, the values are just climbing higher and higher and higher.
We'll talk about those three cards later. You kind of touched on this already, but at what point do you decide to start selling? I mean, you were talking about maybe when you were thinking about buying a house. There in San Francisco, I don't know if it's possible to buy a house, but I mean, what goes into deciding to sell off part of your collection?
Mostly when my other half says I have too much stuff.
So, are you somebody that would hold on to it for the rest of your life if you could?
No, definitely not. I'd hold on to a bunch of stuff. Like I said, I would at least keep one set for myself, and some of the Mickeys I've got signed as well. Like a couple of them I actually sent to Nick Cole, the artist of the Mickey card, and he was kind enough to sign them for me and return them back to me. Um, and I would definitely hold on to those, for instance, just as a reminder that I was here in the early days. But I think, I'm considering selling the set now just because the values are there. And, if I sold a set, I would make my money back like three or four fold now for sure on everything that I bought. Um, and maybe whenever I need more money, that kind of thing. So, yeah, that time hasn't come yet, but I'm waiting for it.
Have you graded your cards?
I have, yeah. Not all of them actually. I kept the set ungraded, the worst ones, but I graded three sets and most of my Mickeys, not all of them. Most of them done by PSA. I sent one to Beckett that I thought was going to get a particularly high score, and sure enough, it did. And I'm fortunate enough there's only five of these in the world right now. So yeah, that one I've had a couple of offers on, which are also very high, but I've just not found myself to part it yet. This one here, the BGS 10 Mickey. But yeah, I guess mostly when I would need the money or when I need to thin down or something like that. I'm probably getting to the close where I should probably sell a bunch of stuff and make some space in the office. That's for sure. What
Well,
about
do the
you, Dan? It
cards take
sounds
up?
like you've a lot of stuff. When do you get rid of stuff?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, all the time. Yeah, like, the wife is wanting me to get rid of puzzles after I do them, and even though I'm like, no, I like to keep them, so I basically had to, like, say, okay, if I want to keep some, I'll get rid of some, but can I keep some? So it's like, 50-50. Like, if for every one I keep, I have to sell one of them.
Mm.
Um, and in general, we're just trying to, like, yeah, downsize, get rid of some stuff that I've collected over the last 40 years of my life. If it's not something that I would, like, put out on a shelf and or want to, like, if it doesn't have, like, really good memories or a value emotionally, then it's something that I can part with. And so that's been kind of the thing where like, you just pull stuff out, kind of make the decision and go from there. But
I
like
think
I
that's
said,
a good mentality, and probably it's something I should think about more when
it's
it comes
hard
to get rid
though.
of mine.
It's
Mm.
hard. I mean, it's really hard to get rid of anything, honestly. I mean, I've had that problem my whole life.
I see
I
people in the
think,
Discord saying, "Oh, I'm liquidating my magic card so I can fund Lorcana purchases." And I'm just like, I cannot, like, I still have my Hero Academia card collections, and I have some cards in there that are worth some money, but I can't imagine getting rid of them because I put so much into them. So I have that issue too.
they have that sentimental value, right?
Yeah, well, luckily trading cards take up, this much room. They're small. The problem is when you buy a few thousand of
Many
them.
of them. Yes. And let me tell you, graded cars take up a bunch of space as well.
Yeah, luckily I don't have very many.
Fair.
So, and I'm not sure I'm ever going to have that many because I think that's just going to be I think that would be too deep of a dive for me. I'm going to collect Lorcana. I'm going to play Lorcana. So I don't think I can, like, spend all of that time, like, looking at everything, getting it ready, sending it in to get graded, getting frustrated when the grades come back if they're not
Yeah.
like what I think. And so I don't think I can, because I'm like with that collector mentality, if I get in, I'm all in. And I don't want to get all in. And, like, I have to
Yeah.
rein myself in. I have to have limits. I have to place limits on myself before I even get started.
I think I'm in the same boat. There's been some questions in the Lorcana HQ channel about like what people think they're going to get graded and that kind of thing. And I originally was thinking I'd get some of the first set graded, but now I don't think I will. I'll just keep it to the D23 cards. I'm going to keep a set of the first set, like pristine and mint in a binder, I think. But unless something stupid happens, I probably won't get them graded. So
So obviously, we're not financial advisors. We're not saying we are. We're not pretending to be. But why invest in collectibles as opposed to something like stocks or real estate?
it's more fun, right? I mean,
I mean, that's really it, right? It's because I mean, are you attached to stocks? Are you attached to real estate? Or are you attached to Mickey? You know?
right,
I mean, that's definitely part of it. That's got to be a lot of it.
right. I think that's you hit the nail on the head. It's unless I particularly cared, or like maybe I was a stockbroker or something like that, and had a great time trading stocks or something like that, then that'll be it. But I enjoy looking at the things I collect as well, and it's like as you say, it's hard to get rid of them. You form an emotional attachment to what you have, right? Um, I think there's a fine line between collecting and hoarding. It's one that I cross from time to time, but uh, but I think that's exactly it. It's more fun to have things that you like, and it's sad to let them go, but eventually you have to. So, yeah,
Well, I remember reading an article that said that the value of Legos increased more in the past 10 years than the value of gold. So, I mean,
yep,
there are things like that that do hold their value extremely well, but for every example of gold, there's probably 100 examples of Beanie Babies that don't hold their value.
right. It's true. I mean, I think there's a correlation between childhood and collectible values, right? I think a lot of adults who grew up with Lego, for instance, are now building, in the community, in the Lego community, there's a time that people call the Dark Ages. And it's the time where, you're a kid, you're into Lego. Then eventually you get older, discover dating, you discover alcohol, you go to college and university and that kind of thing, and more important things takes over. And then eventually you come out your dark ages and you buy your first new Lego set. So they call that time the dark ages, but I think there's some sentimentality there. It's like reliving your childhood in a way. And I think part of the value of Legos is attached to, first of all, that they only produce like Lego sets for a couple of years at a time before they put them out of production. And second of all, people want to get the sets that they couldn't have during their childhood. I certainly went ahead and did that. Certainly the bigger sets, like some of the trade sets or buildings that I wanted when I was a kid, I went back and bought when I was older and could afford them. So, and I think it's the same with Lorcana cards as well. They've got that Disney IP sentimentality as well. People love Disney. A lot of people grew up with Disney, watching Disney cartoons and movies, and their favorite characters, seeing them in parks, that kind of thing. And now they're seeing them in a trading card game and want to get involved. So, and not just collect and invest, but also play. So, hopefully.
Yeah, it's hitting both check boxes. There's the nostalgia for Disney, and for so many of us, like I played the Star Wars card game when I was a kid, and then that hobby died until about a year ago when I got back into My Hero. And I remember just exactly how fun playing cards was. So I mean, I think you're right. They're definitely hitting that nostalgia factor. And then I think they're hoping that they'll wrap our kids into it too. So that by the time they're our age, they'll still be into it. Who knows if Lorcana will go 30 years like Magic? But I think
Fingers
that's
crossed.
the dream, right?
That is for sure. I can't wait to see what happens. I'm really looking forward to the launch of the game and seeing it take off in communities. And yeah, I'm hoping the same as you, Jared. This game takes off.
And they're hitting. I mean, it feels like they're hitting at just the right time because nerd culture became popular culture much more than it was in the last 10 to 20 years. Pokemon really brought because Magic is in my mind was always seen as something like Dungeons and Dragons. It was something that was played in the basement with a bunch of geeks. It wasn't like the cool kids most of the time back in the day. And I think Magic kind of had that about it as well. But Pokemon brought it in with the kids and the cartoon, and that made trading card games much more accessible. And now you're throwing in the Disney IP into it, and it's the whole resurgence. You're at that exact point where they've been around for 30 years. Trading card games are an established market, and there's all these people that grew up with them now, and they're not a weird thing. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that really points towards the perfect time to launch a Disney TCG.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Could you
I
imagine
think
if they had a Lorcana cartoon series to go along with it, like Pokemon? I'm
that'd be
sorry, that would
great.
be pretty cool, I think.
I
Yeah.
actually was really hoping that they'd have a parks tie-in at some point. I mean, like it'd be cool if there was like Lorcana section at Disneyland and you could walk through and like be an Illumineer or whatever and see all the different variations of the characters walking around, the Dreamborn and the Floodborn and whatever else. It'd be very cool to see alternate versions of Mickey walking around Lorcana World at Disneyland.
Oh yeah.
They have some spaces that they do not make really good use of. So it's
There you
definitely a
go.
possibility.
Well, the thing that just popped into my mind was, they had that Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom card game. What if they still had something like that, but you could take your Lorcana cards and use those while you were at the park? How cool would that be?
You mean like an AR kind of thing?
Yeah, so
Scan the
like at
cards?
Universal with Harry Potter, they had the wands. So at Disneyland, they had it with these cards. It's called Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom. But I was just thinking, and I don't know how they do it, but it would be cool if you could take your favorite cards to Disneyland and have some fun little interactions like that, even if you
That would
can't
be
play a
cool.
game.
I kind of have like high hopes that I don't even remember the early days of Pokemon. I mean, I could vaguely remember as a child kid at the time, but um, the Pokemon Worlds and stuff like that they held, it was huge. It was like today's esports event. Thousands of people would gather and watch people play cards for tournaments and stuff. Imagine if they held one of those at Disneyland or Disney World. It would be awesome. It would
That
be
would be pretty
epic.
epic. Yeah, that would be pretty awesome. So in being someone who wants to both collect and play Lorcana, what does that look like for you as far as like what you're planning to purchase, how you're planning to collect it and play it, and all that kind of everything connect around that area?
How do you balance the two?
Good question. I think I really hope to be able to like get involved in any local community that happens here. I'm fortunate enough there's like three or four different local game stores within a couple of miles of my house here in San Francisco. Um, so I've been constantly in contact with them, being like, "When are you getting Lorcana? When are the pre-orders open?" That kind of thing, as I'm sure many others are. But I'm hoping there'll be like game nights, that kind of thing that I can go to and get involved. I have a kid; he's only 10 months old right now, but he's probably a little too young for Lorcana. But I'm hoping that eventually we can sit down and have a game together. When he's the right age. But no doubt, whatever I collect, he'll probably end up with a chunk of those for sure. Um, in terms of what I'm planning to buy, it's difficult to say what I buy. I know what I'm hoping to end up with. I'm hoping to end up with like a playset of each card from the first set. I don't know if a playset is going to be like 3 cards or 4 cards. They haven't said anything like that. I believe rules are only like 4 weeks away right now, hopefully. Um, but yeah, fingers crossed. But yeah, hopefully a playset of each card, and if they have like a foil set as well. They said there'll be foils. I don't know if there'll be like many different kinds of foils as well. Collect a foil set too, and I might even keep some sealed products sealed. As a long term kind of thing as well. I don't have actual hard numbers, but I will buy enough product that to get me there. To get that amount of cards that I would like to have. I know there's also some talk about whether you buy like booster boxes the whole way or whether you buy a certain number and then pick up singles on the secondhand market afterwards. We'll see how it goes. But I know I'm talking to my other half. I'd like to play with her too, and she's willing to give it a go. She's not a big gamer, and she plays the occasional board game, that kind of thing. She's willing to give it a go, which I'm grateful for. So, yeah,
That is awesome.
Yeah,
I
my
gather
wife.
you guys are planning on picking up a chunk as well.
Yeah, I mean that's again the continuing conversation with my wife because she wants to play it too, but she doesn't want to play it, as hardcore as I'm hoping to be able to play it.
Hmm.
Uh, but she wants to put together like she's like, can I put is Bell out yet? And can I put Bell in the deck? That's it's just the specific things, but she wants to play it and she'll play it, but she's like, I don't want to be playing this every single night. But also then that becomes how much do you want to buy? Do you buy, like you said, booster boxes and then fill in singles? How many booster boxes? And I mean, it's just you do whatever, one, what you can afford. And two, whatever you feel like is going to bring you the most satisfaction. Like if you really, you love opening the boxes and the packs, I mean, just buy a bunch of boxes and open them and then start trading. If
Right.
opening the packs is like, oh, I can open up a box and I'm good, then buy a couple of boxes and buy the rest of the singles. I mean, it's just whatever you're going to do. I mean, just make sure it's something that you can afford and that you enjoy doing.
I hate to say it
Is it?
because I know a lot of people love cracking packs, and I do enjoy opening them too. But nothing is more frustrating than when you open a pack and it's a bunch of stuff you already have.
Yes, that is true. But what if you already have like a foil legendary and you get another foil legendary? That means you
See,
get to trade it for another foil legendary you don't have because those things are going to be hard to get.
and that is the argument for. I know. But
I
I'm that
understand.
person that
I,
would buy a box or two and then fill everything out in singles. With this first set, it's going to be different. I'm actually going to buy quite a bit of product and just see how it goes. And if it's something that I enjoy, then I'll probably continue doing that going forward. But we'll see how this first set goes.
Yeah, I do get your
yeah.
point though. I watched just randomly. I watched Wasi open up some of the Weiss Schwartz Star Wars cards a couple of days ago, and he had 3 boxes, which included 6 packs per box, and there's only like 2 cards a pack, and there's like regular and a foil of each card in each pack. And the second set of 6 he opened was the exact same, all 6 cards of the
Disappointing.
special. And I mean, it's like when that happens, yeah. I mean, but that was just horrible to watch. You're like, oh no. So I get that part. But yeah, but with
I
Lorcana, I think
think
there's yeah. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think we humans have short memories, though. It's like, yeah, you get disappointment after disappointment of opening crap pack after crap pack, and then you get one, and like you say, you pull a massive foil legendary that is valued at like $80 or something like that, and suddenly all the memory of the bad packs go out the window, like it
It is a
never happened.
massive rush.
Yeah. No, no, that is definitely the fun. I mean, yeah, it's so much fun opening packs, and it's gonna be a definite problem for me.
So I wanted to ask you, Nathan, if someone were wanting to get serious about collecting, I mean, we were asking about card games here, but even just collecting in general, what advice would you give them?
Buy what you like mostly. I think if you're doing it as a financial investment, I'm not qualified to give advice there. You know, I've had some stuff that's gone up in value and some stuff that's gone down in value. And also, you can never tell. Like the best time to get into collecting anything as an investment is early, but then you have no idea if it's going to go up or down in value. So I think ultimately, buy what you like. If you like it, chances are other people will too. You're not the only person. And so eventually that might have value to somebody if you're buying it as an investment. If you're buying it to collect, and again, just buy stuff that you like. And the main thing is, do you enjoy looking at it? Do you enjoy having that collection? Excuse me. Do you like just having a corner of your house that has a lot of stuff in it that you just like having? I mean, it can be a smaller collection as well. You know, just a pack of cards or a deck of cards or something that you like. I think that's the only main advice I'd ever give to someone is just buy what you think you like. So yeah.
So, from my experience, I've like dabbled in this. I will go out. So, for example, there was this Lego set. It was a Harry Potter Wizards chess Lego set. And I was like, this is really cool. People love Harry Potter, they love Legos, and they love chess. And I was like, I'm gonna buy this and just hold on to it, see what happens. It was $60. And I was thinking maybe around Christmas time it would go up in value. But on eBay, it was like $40. And so, like, I'm planning on holding on to it for a while, but this is the thing that always seems to happen to me. I'll look at things and be like, maybe I should buy this. And then 5, 6 months later, I'll look back on it and it'll be worth, less. So that's like a little frustrating to me. I'm not sure how exactly to find product that will hold its value.
I feel that. I think the main problem there is the short termness of that, right? Is like
Yeah.
even with the D23 Lorcana cards, they came out in September. Uh Last month their value was half or even a third of what people bought them for. After a couple of weeks after they came out, they shot up to 10K for the set of six. If you bought them at 10K, you would have been disheartened to look on eBay last month and see them going again for 4 or 5K. And there are natural ebbs and flows in values of things. Many things from people buying Christmas gifts to tax season to in another thing I was involved with, crypto tax, for instance. People sell off a whole bunch to pay their taxes at the end of the year, that kind of thing. And so there are natural ebbs and flows, and people and companies like Lego and inevitably Ravensburger or whatever will reprint things, and that'll take a short term hit in the value too. But I think the important thing is to look at it longer term as well. I think a lot of the Lego sets that you're talking about that have gone down in value in the short term, you look at them 5, 10 years later, and they're now 10 times what people paid for them back in the day. Of course, you can never guarantee that, but I think it's more important what happens over the long term, unless you're just looking to flip, in which case you have to be more careful with what you buy. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
So I'll
wouldn't call
check
that
back in
investing
with you in
personally.
6 years.
Yeah.
yeah. If you could predict things with any accuracy, then if anybody could predict anything with any accuracy, then yeah, they would be making a whole bunch of money.
Right.
It's just you never know. I mean, like just very specifically at if you look at things over the years, Hasbro at Comic Con, they always produce like a Black Series figure, a Magic set, and then a few other things. Like every year they do the same thing. And some years, I mean, they produce them in almost the same exact quantity, but some years they'll have a figure that on the resellers market years later is still like 20, $30. And then the very next year, they'll have a figure that's 10 times what it costs. You never can tell, even with the same exact kind of thing in the same exact market from the same exact place. It is a market that is confounding and aggravating and also a lot of fun.
It's not all that different from stocks, really. In the end of the day, stuff happens.
Yeah. But it's more fun. I
It
think.
is more fun.
It's
That's the
more
main
fun because you
difference.
get cool stuff to have on your shelf until you decide whether you want to keep it or not, right?
Right.
So yeah. So we did mention earlier that we had some new cards. There was actually a little bit of random news here and there, but let's start off with the cards that were announced last week. We had all three, and the first one we're going to talk about is Aladdin, Prince Ali. This one is an emerald, 2 cost, two for strength and defense, whatever those are called. He's a storyborn hero prince, and his ability is Ward, which we previously saw on Aurora, and opponents can't choose this character except a challenge. And his flavor text is fabulously wealthy, practically untouchable, genuinely inauthentic, which is hilarious, I think. But this is a kind of like just a starter card. Now we know that Aladdin is in another color because he's on the deck, the starter deck box for, is it for Ruby?
Oh,
I
I hadn't
think
realized
so.
that. Interesting.
So, and then Cruella is the other card that's on the deck box, which means, and Cruella is Emerald. So now everyone is thinking that maybe the Ruby Aladdin will have shift because this is an Aladdin you can get out for 2, and then a future higher cost Aladdin you'll be able to get out for a little bit cheaper. Maybe, who knows? We don't know yet. We're just
Yep.
speculating here. But I think that's going to be the case because we already seen shift, and we now have a different color Aladdin than we know is coming out. Pretty
It
cool.
makes me wonder if we're going to get a shift card for every major character that's in the first set, so part of the major game mechanic will be upgrading your character over and over again.
Right. And that's something that really, I mean, we have the evolutions in Pokemon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which
Right.
is a similar thing. But maybe this is one of the major mechanics of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I could see that
And
happening.
this card looks just like a solid early game card, right? I mean, we don't know rules or anything like that, but like you said, its cost is 2, defense and strength are 2, so it's like with any luck, cost being 2, you can get them out early, and it's plays a solid role in the battlefield. So
Yeah.
And he can't be
it's
he can't be
more.
banished by Dragonfire or anything. I learned
Mm.
from Knives that this is considered a French vanilla card because he does have the ward ability, but it's more there just as a reminder text and not as a specific defining ability. Unlike this next card, which is the wardrobe, and this is a strictly vanilla card because it has no or has no abilities, no keyword reminders. It's the wardrobe from Beauty and the Beast. It's 3 cost, has I've been saying 3 attack, but strength probably makes more sense. 4 defense. It's called Belle's Confidant, Dreamborn Ally, and it says when you simply must have the hottest. Okay, how do you say that word?
Couture.
Couture.
Couture, yeah.
I don't run in those circles, but
Me
it's
neither,
a
if you ask my other half.
it's a pretty solid body for a 3 cost card. And again, we don't know if there's any pips on this. Just like with Prince Ali, they have that pesky little triangle covering up that area.
Yeah. And so it's a Dreamborn, which means it's slightly different from the story version. And basically the only thing that we can tell is the color, because it's an amethyst card.
Right.
The jewel on her neck and the coloring of her paint in certain highlights is amethyst instead of the green that it was in the movie. So
Pretty
they
subtle.
basically, if they need a card in a particular color, they just change the color and put it into Dreamborn, and they have a card. It's like magic.
Yeah, of the 3 cards that they revealed, is definitely the least interesting. It's kind of like your soldier on the battlefield, right? It's one of your troops. It's not your weakest one. It's not your strongest one. It's kind of mid range somewhere. It has no special abilities, nothing going on other than how those keywords interact with other cards and spells or actions or whatever else they've got lined up for us. That kind of thing.
Which leads us to our last card, which we asked Nathan to talk about.
Yeah, I don't know. I look at this card. I think it's probably the more interesting of the 3 that they've revealed. First of all, it's quite an expensive card, 6 cost. Before that, you get your 5 strength and your 4 defense as well. But I think the interesting stuff about the card is, I think we've discovered now that damage is permanent, right? So you get damage counters in the I forgot what it's called, the gift set. You get damage counters in the starter decks, and it seems like when those are applied to a card, that the defense might go down. So it starts off at 4 and 3 and 2 and 1, etc. But the ability here in Insidious Plot, when you play this character, chosen opposing character gets -5 strength this turn. It seems like that doesn't apply to strength. It seems like that only lasts for a turn. So it's kind of similar to MTG in that way. It makes the character weaker, so it doesn't hit that hard for the rest of that turn. Maybe allows you to do some challengers, I guess they're calling it in this, where you can challenge this character and it's less of a risk to you because um, you might get not that much damage in return or something like that. But I think as a result, it's more interesting, especially because like strength seems ephemeral, whereas damage seems permanent in this game. At least that's what we seem to cover so far. So he's, to me, the more interesting 3 cards they revealed.
So there's a piece of lingo we didn't cover. Tell everybody what ephemeral means.
Oh, it just meant like it's short lived. It doesn't stay forever. It's kind of
It's just that round.
sorry. I thought it was a standard English word.
So on in fact, and someone pointed this out too on Scar. If you look at where he's stepping, the design on the stone where he's stepping is like the design in the backgrounds of other blue cards with the little circles and lines. So they are putting little details of the colors, the inks of the inks into the art to just even more define each color of ink, which I thought was really cool.
Well, I feel
Yeah.
like this ability is very thematic because this seems like something Scar would do. He's hiding in your deck, plotting for the perfect time to pounce out and catch an opponent unaware. And so that decreases their attack strength by 5 and allows him to banish them. But it only lasts for the one turn because then everybody knows he's there. I love that ability.
Totally, and like you said, thematic. It fits in with this flavor of text as well. It's like I love plans of a little danger, but not danger for me. So I'm going to weaken you when I pounce.
Yep. So those are the cards. I agree. Scar's the most interesting. Aladdin could be interesting. The wardrobe is there. But it was really cool.
But what the
So,
wardrobe does is it means Beauty and the Beast is in the first chapter, and that means my wife is probably going to get her bell card. So we
So
also had a cool little tweet that Jared's going to tell us about the beginnings of Lorcana.
yeah, there was a Twitter account. The person's name was famous, and I can't remember the tweet before it, but Disney Lorcana tweeted him back and said, Project Famous was the code name for Disney Lorcana when development kicked off in 2020. So it's kind of like when you learn the code name for movies when they're being filmed. It's just kind of interesting to know that behind the scenes they were calling this Project Famous.
that is cool. I did not know that. That's awesome.
And it's one of those things that makes me want even more to hope that someone around Disney and Ravensburger had a camera out for a significant portion of the process for the 2.5 years this was in development, so we can eventually get some like 6 episode long making of Lorcana documentary on Disney Plus. I would love if they did that. I just loved watching behind the scenes stuff. I want them to do that. I really hope they do.
Absolutely. I think also, as I mentioned before, I used to be quite heavily into MTG, and one of the things they were really good at, not so much now, but they used to be, is they had a website called Daily MTG where they put up articles with the designers. And one of their head designers, Mark Rosewater, would talk about new sets that are coming out, the design decisions that went into them, put massive articles up talking about those, etc. And a lot of those he talked about the history of the game, why certain things are the way they are, the decisions they made early in the game, that kind of thing. And when I look at the Lorcana website right now, it's quite bare. It's just, it's here's our product. And I really hope they turn it into like a full-on destination website with this kind of stuff where we get to hear more about like the early days of the development of Lorcana, the decisions that went into the cards and why things are the way they are. And I think it'd be so cool if that happened.
Agreed.
Yep, for sure. So we also had a convention in France over last weekend, and the infamous pamphlet, the NDA pamphlet that was handed out at Nuremberg, I think it was, or in London Toy Fair, one of those, or maybe both. They handed out at France, and apparently there was no NDA associated with it. So we got a
That's
good look at it. You can go to the Mushu report to see the screen caps of the thing and to talk about the translations of it. And basically, it's a product guide with barcodes and descriptions. And I think really the main thing we got out of it was the cutoff date for pre-orders being July 1st, and a little bits like I think the damage counters in the starter decks are we just knew originally that they were just tokens of some kind, and now we know they're damage counters. But they also have stuff in there like the accessories. They have no pictures, even though they just have like generic like blue
placeholders.
Yeah, placeholder images because they don't have pictures for them yet. But we get like all kinds of dimensions of things and measurements, and it's just really cool seeing all of the, this is what they're handing out to prospective buyers and letting them know everything that they'll be able to get and what it's about.
The other thing in the pamphlet, there's a little infographic almost where it talks about the journey of the Illumineer. And it's talking about how, the store will get product, but it also says that there will be, I think in French it says league play, like organized play, and that the Lorcana plans on supporting the local game stores with posters and stuff that they can hand out, and hopefully there's prize support too. It doesn't really say that, but then it talks about how there will be advertising, like digital advertising, and there's going to be a community manager to interface with the stores and the community. So, I mean, all this stuff we suspected, but it is cool to see that they have that roadmap there and the ideal flow of what they expect a person who's into Lorcana to go through.
Well, tying into that, there was the news from today. It wasn't much, but of the small bit of set two news that came up from that Dutch, I think it was Dutch or was it German website? I can't remember which.
It was Dutch.
But Dutch. It made an interesting comment about how the set would have a pre-release before a general release. Now, I initially thought that was just talking about what they did for set one, which is letting LGSs have it before big box retailers. But then it talked about specifically doing it through an organized play program, which makes me think they'll actually do some kind of like pre-release event, like Pokemon or MTG or something like that. And if so, that would be excellent as well.
Yeah, that news came to us from a Lorcana HQ user named Gordy. From a website, it's Board Speller, BORDSPELER, and then .nl. That's the only reason why I know it's Dutch. It's from the Netherlands. However, later in the day, it was confirmed to us by Knives. He messaged the Lorcana Twitter account to ask if they could confirm these dates, because not only did it talk about set two releasing on December 1st and a pre-release on November 18th, it also talked about potential release dates for sets 3, 4, and 5. And they responded and said, "We cannot confirm any dates or information beyond the release of Disney Lorcana, the first chapter." So there's that.
Total PR denial ish, because it's not really
Totally.
denial,
It's not really denial.
but it's also no confirmation except for we know Lorcana chapter 1 is coming out and that's it. So, I mean, we all know that they said that they're releasing 4 sets a year. So we know they have to release them every 3 months on average. So it makes sense, on this thing where they say, it's coming out in December because the first one's coming out in September. So it's like, well, 3 months later, that makes sense. And then March, June, September, those all make sense. But, there may be delays. And I think that may be one of the things that why they don't want to nail it down yet, because that's a year away. And,
right.
You never know what may happen. I mean, look at COVID. That messed everything up.
Supply chain shut down.
Yeah. So I mean, no, it was really cool news, but we all assumed it was roughly that timeline. But it's interesting seeing. Yeah, I think that what you mentioned, the organized gameplay pre-release kind of a situation, we hadn't heard anything about yet. Just we know that the shops are getting it early, but that makes sense that it's going to be maybe an organized thing where they get pre-release type stuff.
Yeah, and I don't know, they might actually do that for the first set as well. I mean, we know LGS is getting it early. I think right until now, we just assumed that that just meant they were getting product early and selling it early. But we actually haven't heard anything about the organized play program that they've been talking about at all. So they might be planning pre-release events to go with that too. We don't know.
Spring.
Fingers crossed. 4 weeks, man. 4 weeks.
All right. Is there any other news that we missed, James?
I don't think so. I think that's pretty much it. There was no new official news coming out since those 3 cards from last week.
Okay, then Nathan, will you do us the honors of being our contestant for our Disney Jeopardy segment today?
Oh God, I could try. I was telling Jared earlier. I've never actually seen Jeopardy. I'm very vague on the rules, so I will try my darndest at this.
We're
We're
very
not
lax
very
on the
hardcore
rules
here.
Yeah, we're very lax on the rules. It's basically just try and answer the question. We'll see how it goes.
Okay.
All right, so it goes from 100 to 500 in progressive difficulty, okay? So for 100, this is Finn's favorite snack in the movie Frozen. Finn's the reindeer.
Yeah, I was supposed to word it like a question, right? What do I like to eat? Am I doing that right?
Something like, what are fill in the blank?
What are snow cones?
Snow cones. Good
Is it
guess.
snow cones? No.
What are carrots is the correct answer, though.
Carrots.
Oh boy.
Oh boy, first one failed.
All right, for 200, this is where Aladdin lives. Name
Um,
of the city.
uh, Smarland, would you like to see my palace? I don't know.
We're looking for the name of the city.
Oh, I can't remember the name of the city. Pass.
What is Agrabah? For 300, this is the name of the well in Pinocchio.
Pass again. Pass again.
Oh, what is Monstro? For 400, do
400.
you want James to help you?
Yes, please, please, James,
Okay,
step in,
okay.
save me.
I have the answers in front of me, so I can answer these, but I can give you a hint.
uh,
You
okay,
weren't
go for
supposed to
the
say
hint.
that. Okay, for 400, this is the name of the pub in the movie Tangled.
I do know that one, but I cannot remember. Oh, pass. Sorry.
Uh, it's a comfy Donald,
Comfy Donald.
or should I say a comfy Huey, Dewey, and Louie?
Oh, what is a dwarf?
What is the Snuggly Duckling?
Oh, Snuggly Duckling. Ducks, of course. Told you I'm terrible at Jeopardy.
Well,
You're
we
doing about as well as
appreciate
I
you
usually do, so don't
trying.
worry about it.
Yeah. Hopefully this is entertaining for people. Me failing at this.
Okay, last question for 500. This is the real name of Boo from Monsters Inc.
I would have never gotten this one, by the way. So I'm trying to give a visual hint that no one can see, so no one knows I'm doing it, except for I just said it.
What? Oh wait. Oh, I can remember the name. Okay, what is Mary, right?
Ding, ding, ding,
Is
ding.
that
You got it.
You
is
That,
get
that
the
okay?
hardest one.
that was a hard one. I wouldn't have gotten it.
I wouldn't have either. I would have never gotten that
Oh,
one.
we actually only watched it a couple of weeks ago again, so it was kind of in my mind a little bit.
Well,
There
just
you
to
go.
tell you how bad I am, we watched what was it? Like either Alice in Wonderland or Peter Pan or something like that, like
Peter
2 days
Pan.
before we did one of these. And he asked me a question about something in Peter Pan, and I couldn't think of it. And I had seen the movie like not more than 48 hours before.
What was the name of the dog?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, oh man, I'm so horrible at this. And but it's the way it goes. You get brain lock. You're just like, oh no.
You really do. For
Are
sure.
you keeping track of who got your best scores amongst all the guests you have on the podcast?
Absolutely not.
Sweet. Glad to hear it.
No, because this is just for fun, just to have some fun. And when me and Jared do it, it's like, yeah, I got a 5 for 5 once. So like,
Usually we get 3 out of 5.
Yeah,
Congrats.
usually we're about average, 2, 3,
Okay.
something like that. Yeah.
Well, it was fun, Nathan. If people want to find you online, where can they find you?
You can find me on the Lorcana HQ Discord under Mr. Hobbles. I'm also on Twitter under my name, Nathan Kellenicki. Um, Either of those places are fine. I'm available. This was also
Awesome.
fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
And
thanks so much for stopping by.
yeah, and you're so much fun to interact with on Discord, even before we met in person. I mean, just the insights that you brought and the comments that you made in the Discord were awesome. So I've really appreciated that. Um,
For all the ribbon you gave me for spending most of my time in the finance channel.
it's just like that meme that has Simba and Mufasa, and they're looking over and they're like, "What's that place over there?" And Mufasa's like, "That's not part of our kingdom. You will never go there, Simba." That's how I feel about the finance channel because I don't know what to say. So you guys can stay in the elephant graveyard over there.
It's just fun talking and speculating. That's all. It's just fun
Yep.
and games.
Maybe it's just because I'm jealous that I can't be there participating with you. So
Yeah.
the truth is
Oh,
I
out.
mean, you and what? Less than, well, I mean, take the population of the world, subtract about 800 or so, and you're in the same situation as that much of the world's population because there's not many of these sets out there. So
Yeah.
you have much more company than we do.
You're not making me feel better, James.
Oh, I thought that was good. Like you're like the rest of the world. You're awesome.
Oh, man. All right. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe to this podcast. You can find me on Twitter at Citizens of Lorcana. And James, where can they find you?
You can find me everywhere at Dan Regal, and you can also check out geekshotphoto.com for links, photography and stuff for my wife and I. And thank you all for joining us.